All right, welcome back to Coding CDE 115. My voice still isn't 100%, but we can't put this off any longer. So I'm going to go through this slideshow that we're going to use as the first page for our site. Just a reminder, HTML, hypertext markup language, basically sets up the document structure and elements. So things like paragraphs, articles, the things that a page is made of. We might ask, what's an article look like? Well, different magazines, articles look different, right? So CSS takes those basic structures and gives them visual appearance. We set things like fonts, type sizes, colors, background colors, etc. So basically the appearance of the page. JavaScript we haven't talked about yet, but we're going to do a little bit just because that's how our slideshow is set up. It lets us add programming and interaction to our page. So we can create forms and timers and animation. We can do a little animation with CSS, but we can do more sophisticated things with JavaScript. JavaScript, like CSS and HTML, runs in the browser. Every browser has a JavaScript engine as part of its makeup, and it knows how to handle JavaScript. So we're doing a JavaScript coded slideshow. Each photo is going to cross-dissolve to the next photo. You've got a timer that's going to run the show. There's also a play pause button that the user can click. It is responsive to the browser window size, and you can put any number of photos in the slideshow. But to keep it simple, they should all be the same size and orientation. So basically you want your files to be 72 pixels per inch and then the same horizontal pixel width and the same vertical pixel height, and they should all be either horizontal or vertical. I would suggest horizontal because our screens are horizontal for the most part. The last photo in the series will dissolve back to the first photo, which means basically the show loops continuously. There's a setup file, a JavaScript setup file, which we'll look at in a second, where you're going to enter your photo file names and type in captions for your pictures. So let's take a look at our example. So this is what I've posted on D2L. So if we preview our show, you'll see what it looks like. So there it is. It loads and it starts running the slideshow. And they're fading, dissolving, whatever you want to call it. And when it gets to the last image, it goes back to the first image. It's also responsive, so the images and things scale with the page. And we do have a pause and play button. Since it's playing, the text says pause. I click it, it's paused, and now it says play. Now don't worry about the blue stuff, that's just brackets doing the annoying things that it does. So we hit play, and it starts playing again. You'll be adding your own pictures, not mine, and you'll be writing your own captions, and then the rest of your homepage stuff is going to go on here. So you're going to need a site name and whatever text, other content you want on your page goes there. There's a footer down here right now. It's empty. It's just got a gray background. So that's the basic thing. We've also set up a nav bar up at the top, and that's in our code. You can change the appearance of this. You can change the colors and the fonts and things, but we'll use this basic setup. So we're going to have a 4-page site. Right now, this is just a single page, so these links don't go anywhere, but eventually they will. So let's take a quick look at what you would do to use this site. So if you unpack the archive, you'll see a folder, and it's going to have these files in it. It has dissolve setup, it has dissolve, it has index, which is the page we were just looking at. I've also included a local copy of jQuery. You don't need to ever open this or look at it. It's kind of intimidating to look at. I've got a photo called folders, and then I've got my pictures in here. And your pictures, you don't have to name them consecutively like this, but remember your file names should all not have spaces and weird punctuation marks in them. Underscores and hyphens are okay, in general don't use anything else. And I've also got a style sheet. So these styles I've marked in here, things that you can change with OK to change. And down at the bottom, you can add your own styles in here. So I put in some basic ones for the content box, the H1 and the footer. You can change these, you can add whatever style you need for your particular page. The ones up here that don't say OK to change, don't touch them, leave them where they are. Those are the things that are being used to set up the basic slideshow. And let's take a quick look at how the slideshow works. So we're going to go to Photoshop. Just so you get an idea what's happening, there are two images on the page stacked on top of each other. Okay? And the way that the fade works is that the code, in our JavaScript code, it tells the top image to fade out over some amount of time. So to kind of visualize that, if we go in here, and I've got some layers set up, and I go to the opacity, and I slowly turn it down. So you can see how the fade or dissolve works. It fades out. When it's faded out, basically what happens is the code in the dissolve.js, which you also don't need to touch, but just so you have an idea what's happening. Once it's faded out, the image in that top div that we don't see anymore, it's the one on top, but it has zero opacity. We change the source of that image to the next image, which is the one we're looking at. So we basically have a copy of this image sitting on top of itself. Then we fade that, or we don't even fade it, we turn the display of that image back on, and things look exactly the same. But now we have another picture on top, a different image, it's the same HTML element, okay? But it's got a different image on it. Now we've got the second image on it. So then we switch the image that's underneath it. Okay? So it's kind of like a card trick. You don't see that happening because you can only see the image that's on top. So now if I fade it again, it starts showing the next picture. And then it does the same thing over again. Once it's faded out, it replaces that top image with the next image, in this case, the image we're seeing. It turns it back on, so now we don't see the image underneath it. We switch the source of that image, and when we click our button or the timer runs, it fades out the next one. So we'll look at that run one more time and see what's happening. So image on top, it fades, we replace it, same image, change the background image, fade. So we keep fading the top image, then we replace it with the image that's next. We don't see that happen. Then we fade because we've also changed the image underneath it. When I created this slideshow, I also had it set up so you can click the left side of the screen, it will go backwards through the slideshow, and you can click on the right side of the screen and it immediately goes to the next image. You don't have to use that. In fact, we might comment that out, but it does do that if you happen to click somewhere. Notice the captions are also changing. So in our HTML, to test your slideshow, you don't really need to touch anything in here yet. Eventually you're going to replace the link names and the text that goes on your buttons with things that are appropriate to your page. So instead of page 2, page 3, page 4, they should be related to the categories you've decided to divide your site into. The other page where you're going to make changes, in addition to the style sheet, is the dissolve setup. In dissolve setup, you've got several variables. Speed is how long it takes to fade out. This is in milliseconds, which is thousandths of a second, so 1,000 is 1 second. Pause is how long each image stays on the screen, so that's 4 seconds. That should always be longer than the speed. If you want things to stay on the screen longer, give this a bigger number. Running is determining whether or not the slides start running automatically when the page loads. Our default is set to true. If you want the user to have to click the play button for the slides to start, change that to false. Not in quotes, just the word false. So it's either true or false. Set it back to true. Slide window. You can change the width of the slide window. So let me just do that. I'm going to make it 80, and this is percent. You don't put the percent in, but you can put in the number that goes with the percent. So now when I look at my page, my slideshow is taking up 80% of the window. Everything else still works the same way, it's still scalable. So if for some reason you don't want your images to go all the way across the screen, you can give it a width. That's going to go in here, so put that back to 100. What you do have to set is the width of your pictures, your photos. This should be in pixels, but don't put the px in, just the number and the height in pixels. This is going to determine the ratio of the height to the width, which we need to calculate for some of the internal things that are going on inside the slide show to make it scalable. So open up any one of your images, look at the height and width. So if I go back to mine, I look at this, I could go to image size, and it's telling me my this particular image is 792 by 576. So I would enter that as the width, I would enter that as the height. In my case, the images I use don't have the big white space around them, so that it's slightly different. But my actual images are all 600 by 400. That's a fairly small size. If I was doing this for real, I would use higher resolution images, but I was trying to build it and keep it working quickly and easy to download. In the variables, the first one is just the photo folder name with a slash after it. So that should match whatever photo or folder you're using for your pictures. If you don't have any reason not to, just use photos. You don't have to change anything. If you've called it images or my pictures or something, again, no spaces, but whatever you called it, that goes in here with the slash. In the list one, don't change the names of these things, leave them the way they are. You're going to put two things in each one of these sets of brackets on the inside of the list brackets. The first one is the actual name of your file. These are your image files. They can be JPEGs, GIFs, PNGs, etc., but this should be their name. They can go in single or double quotes, but again, no spaces, no weird punctuation marks. You can use hyphens and underscores. Next to that, after a comma, comes your caption. This is simply the text that's going to show up under the picture. So for each one of your photos, you can write a caption. I've set this up so each one of these is enclosed in square brackets, and leave that structure the way it is. You're just going to change these names to match your pictures. You can add more if you've got more pictures. Put in another set of square brackets, not curly braces, but square brackets. And then you're going to type in a file name, and then you're going to put a comma, and then you're going to type in your caption. Notice in this case I put single quotes. It doesn't matter whether they're single or double, just whatever you feel like. This is literally how it's going to show up on the page, so if you want capital letters, you need capital letters. In your file names, they need to exactly match whatever you named your files. So that will show up over here in your photos. So just, you can even copy and paste the names from here into here. And there should be a comma between these entries. So if you don't need to use this many, well, you should have at least 6 in your slideshow. So 6 or 8 is good. If you delete some, make sure you also delete the last comma. So this curly bracket, this bracket goes with the opening bracket. telling it this whole structure is a list, then each item in the list is also a list. You don't need to worry about what that means particularly, but what you need to change is just the file names and the text you want for your captions. You can also change the speed if you want to fade more quickly. I'll change this to 300, so it's going to change much more rapidly, and I'll make this go faster just so we see it sooner, and I'll make that 2 seconds. So 2000 is 2000 milliseconds, which is 2 seconds. So now when we watch it, the fade's going to happen much quicker, and the slides don't step as long. Other than that, it's exactly the same. Pause still pauses. Even when you're paused, you can still click on the left and right side to go through your slideshow. And you play, picks up where it was, and plays. Right, so that's a wrap on this. I will soon add some more tutorials about the additional pages we're going to put on here. But hopefully over break you've got a chance to get some photos together, and you can start populating your slideshow and then think about what text you want on your pages.